Hello and welcome to UI Chat from the Interface, the monthly show talking about everything Ubiquiti and networking. I'm your host Alex, and once again, I'm joined by my co-host Evan McCann. Welcome, Evan.
Hey, how's it going?
All good. Your mic sounding good this week. Sounds really good. Nice and deep and sort of
Ooh,
sounds nice.
That's good.
Yeah. It must have been. Oh god, this week's gone so quick. It was Monday. I was at the UWC show. We'll get into some of that stuff in a minute, but. Yeah, it's all going good. A little bit of a quieter month this month, I think, for Ubiquiti stuff, but still relatively busy. So, how's things with you?
Good. Two new pieces of hardware, not much else. But yeah, the big exciting thing is you went to London UWC. So what was that like?
Yeah, it was cool. I mistakenly, I'm not sure if it's my fault or it must be. I'll blame Ubiquiti for it. But they booked the UWC for Monday, and the day before was the London Marathon, and the time I got to the city, I drove in fine, but as soon as I got out of the car park and into sort of inner London, it was just like a mob of people. So it took ages to move anywhere, which is quite funny. Just full of people. Yeah, I don't know if you heard of him. I met VJ from Wi-Fi Solutions Spain. He's used to be a pilot. So yeah, I met him when we got a coffee, which was quite nice, and a nice chat, a nice catch up about certain things, which was cool. But yeah, no, it was the event. It was in a really good location. It was in like central London, next to Trafalgar Square. So really good for connections for people coming in from all over. It's such a nice venue as well. They chose a really sort of high end venue. There was Ubiquiti logos everywhere, and it took a long time to get through the queue. I think the queue was about an hour to get processed, and I picked up my free. Got a light doing weird things. I picked up my free Ubiquiti t-shirt there, so that was pretty good. So it was a good event.
Yeah, and I know the most interesting stuff you can't really talk about, but
yeah,
it seemed like it was pretty similar to Chicago as far as like the layout. It was just a one-day thing.
Yep.
I think we can talk about it. You got like the free U7 Pro.
Yeah, that's
as they saw like outside registration, and then everything that happens past registration we can't talk about. Although some of the stuff they talked about, I think, was released this week. The UDM Pro Max. I don't know if that was at the show or not, but
it was.
That's out now.
Yeah. So the way for those interested, the way the order of the day went was it was supposed to start at 10. It started at 11 actually, because I think it took so long to get people through. But yeah, you walked in, you got processed to hand over your driving license, and then walked down some stairs into like the networking room. It was called, but just. Just to mingle with other nerds, and then you got free food, free coffee, and then there was a little table with all the new gear on. There was some stuff there, like the UDM Pro Max, other devices that like there was some stuff that we'll see soon, but there was a lot of stuff that I don't know, things like the intercom access, which was nice to see in person. They had AI Pro, some of the new access devices. They had all the new cloud gateways as well, like the Gateway Max and stuff. So it's nice to have hands-on with some of the newer stuff that I maybe haven't seen in person just yet. But yeah, it was really nice. It was nice to see a lot of other people. I met James, regular Jim the IT guy. For those who don't know, I had him on my podcast, Correct Spotlight, last year, and he does a lot of Ubiquiti stuff from a UK's perspective, and it's good. So yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm very jealous you got to go. Seems awesome. Did they? This is probably something they can't talk about, but did they make any mention about next year, or if they're planning to do this again?
They said 2 or 3 times. They said when we're back in the UK again.
Okay.
So
awesome.
I'd imagine so.
You heard it here.
Yeah.
UWC London 2025 confirmed. No. But yeah, if they do the same thing next year and come back to Chicago, I am no matter what, I will be there. I'm very jealous of everyone that was in Chicago and got to meet up, and I saw some from London. It seems like an awesome event to go to, just to get it together with other people, and then obviously all the other stuff is nice too. Get to hear the inside scoop. But
yeah, so you had Robert's keynote, which talked about history of the company, history of where he came from. They talked about the Air Max line a little bit, because obviously he said, some people here might not know about this, but we used to do this thing or still do this thing. That's where we came from. He said I think they said they've sold 100 million Air Max devices since 2008. Wow. And they've sold 1 million UDM Pro devices since 2020. I think that's what he said. So there's some little tidbits there. And then I can't remember his full name, but Craig from Ubiquiti, I think he's been there a few years, did his talk about gateways. There was a guy called Will who is now head of support, but he used to do something else. I can't remember what. He talked about UniFi Access, UniFi Protect, and then Safi as well, which is he's way up in the command of the company. He's basically Robert's next right hand man. He did a few bits and pieces, and then UI Jamie is his tag, but Jamie, he's been there for an incredibly long time on the forums, so he did some talk about Wi-Fi 7. So no, it was good. It was really good. So yeah, I think they're going around. I think they did Germany on Wednesday. I think they did Stockholm today, and then they're doing Dubai, Australia, and somewhere else. I can't remember where, but yeah, Singapore, I think. So yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's very good. So yeah. Okay, before we get into the Ubiquiti news, we've got a quick reminder to review this show if you can. Thanks to everyone who's been listening or watching the UI Chat podcast. If you can, leave us a review on your podcast app of choice, or leave us some feedback in the comments on the YouTube video. That would really help us out. Thank you. Cool. The very first one is, we've got a double whammy here. We've got the UXG Max, which I've got on the desk here, ready to be reviewed at some point. And also the UDM Pro Max, which was it was announced on Monday at the conference, and then they said it was available tomorrow, which is Tuesday. So yeah, I know you mentioned on Reddit that the UDM Pro Max was leaked. We must have talked about it in a prior episode. I can't remember. But yeah, some cool new devices here. So for the first one, actually, we'll get into the hardware a little bit more in detail in a minute in the hardware section of the show. But we've also had, I think you saw on Reddit that the G5 PTZ and the Access Ultra were previewed at some sort of conference somewhere.
Yeah, this I put this in the show notes like 2 weeks ago or so.
Yeah.
So it was before UWC London. I'm not sure what event it was, but someone was posting pictures of like a show floor, and they showed the UDM Pro Max along with the G5 PTZ camera and the Access Ultra. So I was like, it got me in that mode of thinking of like what is allowed to be talked about. So because I thought if that was a UWC event, like they specifically say no taking pictures, no posting about it. Maybe it wasn't a UWC event. Maybe it was some other vendor show. I'm not sure, but yeah. So those did leak out kind of a few weeks ago, and then of course we did see the UDM Pro Max be released. Yeah. But yeah, just interesting, and I'm always kind of thinking about like what things can and can't we talk about. It kind of keeps coming back up.
Yeah, so the G5 PTZ was on show at UWC, but it was also on show, from what I know, at the Chicago one. I think someone's just taking a picture they just don't care. So I doubt they've done any conferences since. It looks like they've been pretty busy, but I might be wrong. I don't know what they've been doing. So, but yeah,
I know what they've been doing. They've been finally putting USG and USG Pro models as legacy.
Yeah, this was slipped under the radar, actually, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. They didn't let anyone know. I think this was on Monday or something.
I saw a comment from Willie that it was actually that change was made a couple weeks ago. And yeah, obviously no announcement. They didn't really make a big fuss about it. And then, yeah, I think it kind of got picked up. I don't know who originally tweeted about it or made a post about it, but it kind of word got out more so this past week that the USGs are now legacy. And what legacy means to Ubiquities means they stopped receiving functional or security updates and are no longer officially distributed. You may still see them for purchase by third-party vendors, and they may not be supported in full or at all by future releases. So this is, really the end of the line for the USG.
Yep.
They're not going to turn off, they're not going to turn themselves off, or they're not going to be broken or stop working, but you're not going to have software support. You're not going to have security fixes. You really, there's enough options now, and we're about to talk about one of them.
Yeah.
There's enough options to upgrade. So if you have USG, it's time.
Yeah. So I saw some questions on Twitter somewhere. Someone asked when was the USG first announced, but I think the old one, the USG 3P, was 2013.
13, 14, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a for those keeping count, that's 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a long old time. And for the price, the USG 3P, I think it was about £100 back when it was released. And I think it still was up until recently. That's not bad going, really, for a device that is quite long in the tooth software-wise. I think it's based on EdgeOS. There's Evan's cat. And then, if like tomorrow, if there's a CVE that gets released, you won't know about it because they don't care. Like, they literally don't care because they're not supporting it. So the general advice, really, to anyone that's using the old USGs is make a plan to swap them out for the UXG Lite. It's so cheap and it does really good performance. Or then you've also got the UXG Pro. So and then we'll talk about the new one in a minute. But yeah, that's the sort of general advice that I've seen, and that's what I think as well. So yeah, make a plan to get rid if you can.
Yes, time to put it out to pasture.
Yeah. And then that first one, that new UXGs, the UXG Max. So I've got one, as I mentioned, to review at some stage when I get around to it. This is interesting because it's got a switch built in, isn't it? It's the first UXG Max, or the first UXG product, which has got some sort of switch involved. I don't know whether or not it's got any backplane limiting like the UDM models, but it's interesting. But like chassis-wise, I think it's very similar size or very similar footprint to the UCG Ultra, but it has got more ports in the back, I believe. I'm not actually sure if the USG Ultra does, but yeah, looks interesting.
Yeah, it is. That's kind of how I view it too. It's kind of like the sibling to the Cloud Gateway Ultra. It seems like pretty obvious that Ubiquiti comes out with a piece of hardware, and then they have the Cloud Gateway version, and then the just Gateway or the UXG version. So we already saw that with the Express and the UXG Lite. Those are the very smallest, lowest power, only 2 gigabit port, options. The Express is a controller. The UXG Lite is just a gateway, so you need a cloud key or a self-hosted server or something like that to use a UXG. And now, we're finally seeing the other half of the Cloud Gateway Ultra. So this is I think it's the exact same size, exact same interfaces, but the big difference is the UXG Max has 2.5 gig LAN ports. The Cloud Gateway Ultra only has gigabit.
Okay.
And the Cloud Gateway Ultra, it gives you a lot. Like it is a controller too, but it does have that backplane limitation where you're never going to get beyond gigabit speeds going from like LAN to WAN, even though it has a 2.5 gig WAN port. So you could technically have like a 2.5 gig connection coming in, but you'll never get more than a gigabit on the LAN or through it. So the UXG Max gets rid of the controller and upgrades those interfaces, which is the exciting bit. And because it is a built-in switch chip there, it is, as far as I understand, full 2.5 gig throughput to the WAN and between LAN ports and between networks. So it's not backplane limited. And it does have dual WAN just like the Cloud Gateway Ultra. You can remap one of the ports there. It does up to about 1.5 gig IDS IPS. Of course, closer to line rate with that turned off. It's beyond the flexibility of actually using 2.5 gig, higher throughput. For only a bit more. I forget what the exact pricing is.
I don't think it's too bad.
I think it's 70. I think it's one.
It's $199 in the US, and the Gateway Lite is $129, so that's like $70. So it's not bad.
So for me, I have a UXG Lite. I would have spent the $70 extra to get this instead. And I think a lot of people feel the same. Like the UXG Lite is great for small setups. The UXG Max, I think a lot of people bought a UXG Lite, but if this was available, they would have opted to spend the extra $70 to get this.
Yeah. No, I agree. It looks good. Just hasn't got the screen because I think only the UXG Pro does. Don't really need it, to be honest. No, I bet there's been some people saying, "Oh, it should have PoE," but no, you just have a PoE switch. I'll just knock the price up even higher than it needs to be. But no, it's good. It makes me think what's next for the UXG line, because we've got 3 now, and it's really, really good. It's 4 years in, I think, to the UXG. Well, 2 years in officially.
Right.
But 4 years in.
2 years of early access for the UXG Pro.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good to see them expanding it and sort of competing with other providers. because other providers are slowly getting there with other things like Alta Labs. So no, it's good. And the second one is that brand new UDM Pro Max, and this was announced at the UniFi World Conference and sort of shown off as a real enterprise device essentially. And the one thing they hammered home was its redundancy capabilities. And there's already been some reviews. I think Chris Techno Tim, I think his name is. I can't remember his name, and also Cody. And the others have had access to this device, obviously, since pre-release. They've had 2 of them, I think, some of them sent to them so they could demo the shadow mode. But no, it looks good. It's like a Gen 2 UDM, essentially, with more specs, so it's good.
Yeah, in the announcement, I don't think they said 2nd gen anywhere, but I did see in the comments of the YouTube video, or the description, they did say this 2nd generation UDM Pro, or 2nd generation Dream Machine, I think is what they said. So it is 2nd gen, even though it's kind of like a Gen 1.5 or something.
Yeah.
But yes, so I mean, top line specs for what, $100 more than the SE. The SE is $499. The UDM Pro Max is $599.
That's
so
right.
You spent you spend an extra $100. You lose PoE. You get a second hard drive bay. You get a faster CPU, double the RAM, and I think that's it.
Pretty much. You also get the SSD. Oh, you said that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it depends on which one you compare it to. I think it makes more sense to compare it to the SE because there's less differences. But if you compare it to the original or the non-Max UDM Pro, all the other stuff that was added to the SE outside of PoE is there, like the SSD for Protect storage and the 2.5 gig WAN RJ45.
Yeah. They compared it to the Pro, the UDM Pro. The reviews I watched, especially Chris's, he said that the reason they haven't put PoE in it is because it's an enterprise device. It's not designed for home stuff, and generally, I'd have thought that enterprise situations they have proper PoE switches, so you don't really need it in there. It probably wouldn't even go used. So yeah, and the UDM SE is more of a home device kind of. So I see what they're doing. I don't think that's a problem, to be honest. So
yeah, I saw a lot of people complain about the lack of PoE, and
okay.
I feel the same way. Like, to me, this is not something for your house. No. I think Chris from Crosstalk, he started his video, or started the description. He's like, this is not for your house.
Yes.
Of course, that won't stop people from buying it for their house. But really, like what this is meant for is when the UDM Pro or SE, whichever one you pick, when that isn't enough. So the big thing all of the specs and improvements get you is it's double the management limit, double the client limit, and you get a little bit more for your camera limits as well for Protect. So if you have more than 100 switches or APs, like that's kind of roughly the limit of the UDM Pro. You know, once you get close to 100, you're kind of pushing it to the limit. This says up to over 200 devices, so roughly double. Same thing with clients, 1,000 versus 2,000 clients. And the cameras are like, I think it's like 20 versus 25 full HD cameras. It's a minor improvement, I think, just from the additional CPU power that it has. And the 2 hard drive bays they're only mirrored, right? Like you can't use both disks as storage. It's only you have data copied to 2 locations. It's RAID 1, I believe. So they have extra redundancy, but also, like, to me, if this is an enterprise device, I don't understand why you'd have those hard drive bays at all, because they're most likely going to want a separate NVR for higher camera limits, more storage, better flexibility with the RAID types. The 2 hard drive bays, but you can only use it for mirroring. It's interesting, but I don't know. They've
probably looked at it like there's probably big deployments with a lot of clients, a lot of APs, but they only have a couple cameras. I think, interestingly, I didn't really think about this before, but the conference, there was the Chicago one, someone from the FedEx forum did a demo, did a talk about how they use UniFi. The one at the London one was a IT manager for a pub chain, and they deploy Ubiquiti in every single place, and he said the benefit of having you Protect on the UDM Pro was to give them a taste of what they could have. So they slowly moved everything over to UniFi over time, like the cameras. They did it bit by bit, and he said that what was a really good seller for it was the fact that they could put 2 cameras into the site, put them on the UDM, or maybe even a few more than that. And then what they found was that the people who owned the pub wanted more because they loved them, so they would then have to put UNVR in. So it was sort of like a dip your toe in the water sort of thing. And I imagine they could have the RAID functionality with that as well, I guess. But yeah, it's a weird one.
That makes sense. I guess to have that kind of easy intro to Protect and all the other applications, I guess it makes sense for that. And probably for a lot of businesses or smaller locations, or even large networks, but kind of minimal camera needs.
Yep.
It's probably all you need, and that way you just have only one U, and that handles cameras and network for you. So
yeah, so that's cool. Again, not for your house, so don't complain about the PoE.
How do you feel about the naming?
A lot of the comments I saw was very Apple-y, so Apple have got their influence on this one and different things, but I don't know. They haven't got the Ultra. They couldn't use the Ultra brand because that's for low end stuff. I don't know what else they would call it. Like they don't tend to do this thing with calling a new product the same product like the MacBooks that Apple do. They don't have the new MacBook, the new UDM. They just have a brand new name for everything. I mean, what else? It's a okay naming scheme. It's the Pro UDM, which we haven't even got the UDM anymore. The base one that's been discontinued. So I guess Max is the next option, but I don't know.
Right, but Max it implies top of the line, and I assume there's going to eventually be another one. So like, if you go to replace the UDM Pro Max, what do you call that one? You can't use Ultra because that's Apple's top of the line thing. I don't know. I think Max is fine. I think people get a little bit too grumpy about the names. I've definitely been grumpy about it in the past. We've complained about it on this show even.
Yeah.
But you have to call it something.
I think
UDM Pro 2nd Gen.
I think UDM Pro Gen 2 would have worked.
Yeah.
They used to use that naming scheme with the nanobeams. You had Gen 2 nanobeams. You had Gen 2 switches. Right. It would have. They could have done it, but perhaps they didn't want to. So.
Yeah, if I can complain about anything for real, it's the lack of consistency and just having Ultra mean low end. Those two things. But anyway, UDM Pro Max, it's here. I'll probably screw up the name, but it's a fine product if you need more from a UDM Pro or SE.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's pretty much all the hardware. I think that's probably only got 2 bits of new hardware. So, that is it pretty much. We got a few bits of software in here. So we got a security advisory bulletin for Connect and Access. So something to do with the vulnerability on the Android device bridge.
Yeah, it was a pretty low CVE, but I just thought it was interesting that these devices are basically kind of Android tablets, from my understanding. Like they're underlying OS. They just run on top of Android. So yeah, technically you could take it, connect it to a computer, and then use if you're trying to develop Android apps and you have a computer set up for that, you'd plug your phone in and use it as like a way to deploy your application and test it. So that connection to your computer is Android Device Bridge. And you could do that with these Connect devices, and I think install your own software onto them, so they flag that vulnerability. And I just like pointing out these security advisories.
Yeah, I didn't see
this one. Definitely follow them. Yeah, follow them on the forum if you can, or in the community. And this was a small kind of lower risk one, but keep an eye out for that and make sure if you have any of these devices to update them. Yeah,
it's surprising how much stuff runs on Android. I think I've got a Honda at the moment, in the moment for a review, and you go to a certain part of the UI, it just puts you into Android, because you can even install APK files on those infotainment screens, which is quite funny. So
nice. Well, I think the talk phones are Android too, right?
Yeah, they are. Yeah. They used to be as well. Yeah, the old ones. Yeah, everything runs on Android.
And your car.
We've also got some UniFi Network application versions. We've got 8.1.124 and 8.1.127. Got triple digit ones now.
Yeah, I think it's time for 8.2.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, .127 is the one that's it's currently release candidate. So maybe by the time you're listening to this, it'll be GA. 124 is just a minor bug fix update, but 127 does have a few new features. They say it enhances firewall rules visibility. So a bunch of that's just like when you go into the view of the firewalls, you get side panels and more information.
Okay.
I thought that was more like the logging of the firewall rules, and that still hasn't really changed. But the rule viewer is much nicer. And the other big thing is it adds tunnel IP addresses and OSPF routing support for IPsec site to site. So that's just kind of extending OSPF into more places because they've been using that for Site Magic. They added it as a routing option in UniFi, and now it's used for site to site VPNs.
Okay.
So
pretty good.
Yeah, that 127 will be out soon. And the other thing I wanted to call out was they made another reference to UniFi OS 4.0. I think they specifically said 4.0.1 was required for a future, but we still haven't seen UniFi OS 4. But I assume shadow mode and a few other things that are kind of upcoming or talked about, and in these release notes, UniFi OS 4.0 will be here soon, and I'm excited to see what that gives us.
Yeah, 4.0 is coming in early not early access. It's an alpha because in Chris's video of the UDM Pro Max, he mentioned that his UDMs came with that version of software, and it brought the high availability mode, which means you don't need to unplug and plug stuff in to get it to fail over, just to do it all by itself, which is quite cool. There's also UniFi Gateways, so UXG 3216, which is in EA. Apparently it fixes some adoption or setup issues. The setup experience has been improved. Some crashes have been fixed, and I'm not sure what that means, deadlock issue while using traffic identification, but yeah.
I'd assume it stops passing traffic, maybe.
Oh, okay,
Deadlock.
that makes sense.
But yeah, there's a memory leak, high CPU usage. I wish this would be GA, but hopefully it will be soon. I'm just curious how that, especially for the low end ones, for the UXG Lite, just because that's so resource constrained.
Oh yeah.
I'm interested in that. If there's any differences in performance with that?
Yeah. There's also Express 329. Main thing was just to improve the adoption process, which I think I've just been making a video for the Express, but how to adopt it to a self-hosted controller, and that's an afternoon gone. I won't get back.
It's very slow.
Yeah. And also 2.4 gigahertz throughput could be lower than expected, so they've improved that as well. So that's good. Cool. The UniFi Design Center as well. So they've added new products, improved the product selection wizard as well. Wi-Fi coverage, floor plan editor, and PDF export. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a strange thing to put on your releases page, because I think of that as like for software, firmware. But yeah, they do technically have release notes for Design Center, which is design.ui.com. So yeah, nice improvements there. And yay, release notes for a website.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Protect iOS app as well. So they've added support for the Protect 3.0. So that's facial recognition, archive to Google Drive, etc. I still can't get that feature working. I need to sort that out.
Well, yeah, I think this just came out this week or a couple days ago.
Yeah.
So Protect finally went 2.0, like the iOS version.
Yeah.
So on your iPhone, iPad, etc. Maybe archive to Google Drive will work for you there.
I'll give it a go.
Who knows?
And then one of the more UISP stuff is UISP 2.4.93. This is a massive release. I can't remember how long some sort of form of this has been in EA, because these features aren't that new to me, but because I've been messing around with UISP on this sort of version for ages. But there's a ton of stuff in here, which is awesome to see. So that's really good.
Yeah, this might be the longest release notes that I've seen in a while. Just the bug fixes, you scroll and scroll and scroll.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
ton
of bug fixes, and yeah, this is kind of a long time coming. It does add support for the Wave Pico devices. It has the totally reworked devices view. It allows for the direct access to the local devices web interface.
That's right.
And so look, we've seen this in EA because the UISP console and router 5.0 was in EA and release candidate for so long, and all of those relied on, I think, like a 2.4 release. So I think
Yep.
2.4.93 is finally this, coming GA after all this work.
That's good.
So it's a big update for UISP.
Yeah, the local user interface feature that works on the EdgeRouter, UISP router, USP console, and USB switch, and it must port forward something, or do something along those lines. It works really well actually. There was a
it says requires port 8089.
Yeah, so that is a web port, isn't it? So
Yeah.
Yeah, really good because it just bridges the gap between them. Then putting the features of the GUI inside USP, they either don't have to do it anymore, or just gives them that time to do it if they. Gives them that time if they need to. But yeah, no, it's a really useful feature, especially if you've got somebody's EdgeRouter in their house or business, and you need to change something without them to do TeamViewer or something like that. So it's good. But yeah, huge update. There was something I saw as well. I can't remember if it's in these release notes, but they've improved the logging for the solar point, so it now tell you when it's charging and when it's not. So that's good.
Nice. Do you run UISP at home, or do you have UISP in use?
I've got UISP with Hostify actually. It used to be
Okay.
with the UISP cloud, but it was very slow. As soon as I moved, even with 20 devices, as soon as I moved it to Hostify servers, it was like rapid fast. So now I've got Air Max devices at home. I've got SolarPoint, my WISP devices, the 60 gig stuff, edge routers and stuff. No, it's useful.
Nice.
So, and then some routering stuff. So UISP router, I think we've discussed 5.0 on the show a few times.
I feel like it's been in EA for like a year. But yeah, this is it's finally out of EA. It's finally a general release. I think it's 5.0.1 for the router and console. So this gives the local web interface, BGP, OSPF, IPsec, WireGuard, all the good stuff, and it's finally done. So
Yeah,
hooray!
no, it's good. There's something to do with PPPoE. I don't think it can be a PPPoE server yet, but it has PPPoE support on the WAN, which is good because I don't think it had it beforehand. I remember setting one of these up, and it wouldn't do it.
It didn't have support on the WAN?
I don't think so. I might be wrong. I might have to double check that. But I know that there's people asking for triple PoE servers on these devices because the EdgeRouter has it and these don't yet. So
yeah, the UISP router is so strange that 2+ years on, like it's still not feature complete as far as like just even comparing to the EdgeRouter. But yeah, this is a big step, so I'm happy to see 5.0 and hopefully they get on the rest soon.
Yeah. It says add one or more DHCP servers. It makes it sound like you couldn't add more than one DHCP server before.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. And then
here's the router. Sorry, we don't have DHCP.
And then the very last one is EdgeRouter 3.0 release candidate 8. I guess that's what RC means. Yeah.
Speaking of never-ending betas, I'm glad the EdgeRouter is still alive, but yeah, it's kind of sad to see release 8 or release candidate 8. So still hoping for a GA release there, but almost.
So yeah, 3.0 improved login experiences. They fixed. There was some issues with older versions where the USP remote access just wouldn't work, and it does work now. I've tested it, and various bug fixes in there. And there's still these 2 or 3 known issues that have been there since like the dawn of time.
Issue with deep packet inspection and offloading on certain models. So maybe that's what's holding this up from going GA. But
yeah,
who knows?
I still think that they're just letting it tick along, and then as soon as UISP router is feature parity, they'll just kill it off like the USG. I think they'll just make it EOL.
Right.
So
yeah,
I think that's what they've got planned.
Same, because the UXG's going legacy was kind of overdue. Same thing with there are a few of the very oldest EdgeRouter models, but a lot of that hardware is similar to what was in the USG, and a lot of it's coming on 10 years old. So yeah, I think more EdgeRouters. They'll get 3.0 like right the same day that they're marked legacy, I bet.
Yeah, and I just think they can't do it unless there's something equivalent out there for customers because the EdgeRouter is so popular. Same like when they were waiting for the UXG stuff to be ready, and then they killed off the USG. They're just waiting for that to be done, I think. And as we mentioned before, I think the code base of Edge OS is so old, and I think, as we mentioned, I think the people that know how to make it all left Ubiquiti, and I reckon it's just a mess, that code base. So starting fresh with whatever they've got going on with the UISP stuff is probably the best way to go. So,
well, yeah, and they're kind of like pushing UniFi up. So like UniFi's taking over some of the places you would want to use an EdgeRouter, or there were certain features that you had to go to, UISP or Edge OS for in the past that are now handled by UniFi. So maybe they're just trying to make same thing with it. UniFi's kind of went down to take over AmpliFi's spot with the Express, and they're kind of bringing it up. So maybe that's what their plan is.
Mentioning AmpliFi, have you noticed on the store the AmpliFi what was it called? AmpliFi Instant is now gone. They've dropped it off the store. I think that's what it.
Which one's the Instant? Remind me.
It looked like a UniFi Express. It looked like this.
Okay.
It was one of those. Yeah.
Okay, they have a learn more link. I thought it was. Yeah, it's just kind of basically that little. That is
So the AmpliFi store only has, well, in the US at least, it has the AmpliFi HD, the OG one, the mesh system with the two little things, and then the AmpliFi Alien. The AmpliFi Instant's gone now. So
I forgot about what I was thinking of was the teleport, which was like if you're traveling and want to connect to your home network.
Yep.
It was before UniFi Teleport, which is their VPN.
Yep.
They had the AmpliFi Teleport, but I forgot the Instant even existed. But RIP.
Yeah, they obviously decided UniFi was a stronger brand, so yeah, it's all good. Cool. That's probably the shortest news section we've ever had, I think. That's pretty good.
I mean, it just feels like there was so much stuff that was upcoming that we talked about month after month, and so much of it is here now. Who knows? Probably there's definitely going to be more UniFi hardware. I think they even said as much. But who knows when that's happening? But yeah, it feels like UniFi's in a pretty good spot. As far as Network 8 is pretty strong. I'm really excited for UniFi OS 4.0, and there's way too many hardware options, and we're gonna have more of them soon, I'm sure.
Yeah. Cool. Before we get out of here, what have you been working on that you'd like to let the good audience of UI Chat Podcast know about?
I have a lot of drafts on which is not interesting because no one sees those. I did do a UXG Max kind of preview, and I have another one for the UDM Pro Max.
Oh, sweet.
All the usual updates there. But I did see you had some pretty big milestones with your YouTube channel for Hostify, right?
Well, yeah. So we've crossed the mark of 4,000 subs, which is awesome. But we also, whenever it was, I think it was early this month, we hit 1 million views on all the videos combined, which is like crazy.
That's awesome.
So that's really good.
Congrats, man.
Yeah, it's good. It's got some cool stuff planned. I've got many boxes that are yet to be opened.
Well, so. Yeah, you have a. I mean, I'm assuming I don't want to talk about upcoming projects, but you said you have a UDM or UXG Max, right?
So I got UXG Max
review for that.
Yeah, I got UXG Max. I've also got a UniFi talk system over there, which hasn't been even opened for a few periods of time.
Years?
No, a few months actually at this point. I need to sit down and do that. They haven't got the feature for porting numbers in the UK yet, so I kind of wanted to wait for that, but it's still just grayed out. I got the U7 Pro, which was a freebie, which was nice, and then I've got the accessories for the UK Ultra. I don't know how exciting that would be. And then
that's I can't wait for that one. Ooh.
Some other bits, but I've been working on the UniFi Express video today. That was a bit of a pain to get adopted to the controller. It's so weird. It's very slow to boot up. You can't do set inform. You can't use the web GUI or the UniFi app to point it somewhere. The process is you have to plug it into power, have another UniFi AP sitting around that's in mesh mode. It then appears, and then if you want it to be wired, you then plug it in, and it becomes a wired AP.
Yeah, the Express is so strange.
That's weird.
I'm glad they have that mode where you can use it as an AP, but I didn't realize that process was so strange.
It took me a good afternoon. Yeah.
Right. Well.
Ridiculous. That review will be out at some point. But yeah.
Nice.
That's all good. I think we'll leave it there. So, as always, you can find this podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and more. For a full description of this show, visit the episode link in the show notes, and there's some chapters and things in there as well. If anyone has any Ubiquiti-related questions, please email them to info@theinterface.uk, and me and Evan will go through them in a future episode. We haven't had any questions just yet, but if you've got any questions about UniFi or anything about Evan's cat or something, just let us know.
We're begging you to ask us questions.
Listener feedback is what we're built on.
Yes.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of UI Chat. Evan, where can people find you online if they want to find out more about you and what you do?
evanmccann.net.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you like what we do, follow the show on all the podcast platforms and on YouTube. Give us a rating. This really does help other people find this show. Once again, thank you for listening or watching, and we'll see you again next time.
See ya.